first up this morning, talking about emerging issues and our H&H program here in the design division at TxDOT. We've got Rosemarie Klee. She is our H&H section director. She has 20 years of experience in both the public and private sectors. Her tenure at TxDOT has included working in Bridge Division, Design Division, Austin District, Design Division again, working on all sorts of different projects ranging from bridge project management to utilities to acting as a liaison to the CTRMA. So she's covered a lot of good experience in her career. She studied at the University of Texas at Austin and has a BS in architectural engineering and a master's in environmental and water resources engineering. So without further ado, Rosemarie Klee.
Thanks so much, Jason. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate your interest in this topic and this track. So we've got a series of great presentations, and I want to start out talking about emerging issues and giving you an update on this statewide H&H program. I started in my role in June 2020. So we became a section at that point and really seeing like this as a strategic opportunity to really cultivate the practice statewide, and that's why you're getting these updates to see how the pieces are moving. But I did want to take a moment to just reinforce the relationship of hydraulic performance and safety. So in general, Texas has the highest number of flood fatalities by far of any state in the country, with more than twice as many fatalities as California, which is the next highest state. Flooding is the single greatest cause of weather-related deaths, and the majority of these deaths occur while people are in their vehicles. People in their vehicles, in the U.S. overall, vehicles are where 50% of all flood-related fatalities occur, and in Texas, it's 76%. And while we have some of the highest counts of flood deaths in central Texas, which has been nicknamed Flash Flood Alley, because of how quickly intense rainfall can become a major flood wave, when the data are actually normalized per capita across the state, we see that rural areas and areas outside of Flash Flood Alley are as or even more hazardous. So I wanted to share this 6-12-24 rule as a reminder. So 6 inches of fast-moving water can sweep away an adult, 12 inches can take a small car, and 18 to 24 inches can carry away most large vehicles. And the reality is that it's pretty much impossible to tell how deep water is flowing. So please turn around, don't drown. So the conference theme is delivering with excellence. And I just love this saying, a problem cannot be solved using the same thinking that created it. Probleme kann man niemals mit derselben Denkweise lösen, durch die entstanden sind. I really think that it fits into this theme of delivering excellence that was discussed in the opening session, and we've really heard that infused throughout the conference presentations. So it's just really required of us to continue to keep asking questions and learning and evolving our practice, and so we need to keep thinking in new ways. So this is what my group does. The H&H section leads the statewide practice of hydrology and hydraulics through development of policy and guidance, providing training and specialized project support, cultivating a community of technical collaborators, and maintaining expertise at the leading edge of the state of practice and the state of knowledge. So our activities include maintaining the hydraulic design manual, providing technical support to districts, reviewing project plans and studies. We do select project work. We identify and address training needs, and we collaborate with other divisions on multidisciplinary programs, and we support districts and our general counsel with drainage complaints. And then we really just try to stay on the leading edge with our H&H research program in collaboration with RTI. I love asking new leaders this question: what is your vision for your own leadership? And so I wanted to just share mine, and it's short and sweet. The vision ultimately is to ensure that all of TxDOT's needs, our H&H needs, are well served, and quite frankly, to have the best practices of any H&H section in any DOT in the country. So I think that we deserve it, I think that Texas deserves it, and that is the ultimate goal. This is our team. We have a combined total of 131 years of experience. We have 4 master's degrees. We have experience with other Texas state agencies, other DOTs in other states, the private and public sectors, academia, multiple districts, divisions, and disciplines. And our work is evolving as we try to think in new ways about how we organize and utilize our capacity to be as effective as possible in delivering on our purpose. So we do have 2 new people coming soon. I just really want to express my gratitude to the Design Division leadership for their continued support and investment in this statewide program. We also are very fortunate to have some excellent consultants that are partnering and supporting our work and helping create new initiatives and increase our capacity. And I just want to remind everyone that we're really here to serve the entire state. So it's really not about us, it's about you. So as I discuss program updates and emerging issues today, I just really hope that you're going to try to sort of locate yourself within this and really think about how we can partner or what needs you have that you need us to understand our priorities so that we can serve you better. So today I'm going to give an update on some of the major areas of focus for the H&H section. And I just want to plant a few seeds and create awareness on 2 emerging issues. So here they are. And then I actually added this emerging issues topic fairly recently, so I just want to apologize for an update to our program. So we got 3 separate presentations this morning, and we're going to take about the same amount of time for each one. So we'll not be planning to end at 8:15 in case you're wondering and you're worried. Oh yeah, thank you. All right, let me know if this is better. So training, a major focus of our group. There are 18 formal training programs in the course catalog that are for H&H. And so we really need to make sure that those programs are the right classes, that they are of the caliber that they need to be, and that they encompass all the different topics that we need to have. So the goal really is to ensure that designers feel well supported in training. So it's something that we are asking people to perform all these functions. Everywhere we have roadways, it rains. So we really need to not just be some rarefied group of people that really understand and feel empowered to do these designs with the technical skills and knowledge. And so that's why training is the first priority that I'm going to be mentioning here. So in addition to the traditional classes that we are taking a fresh look at making sure that they're the right ones, that they're at the caliber that we need and deserve, and that they're the right topics. We are also looking at whether there are additional topics that we need to be covering. So this summer, we actually ran the first little mini session of GIS for water resources. And that has become a really important need that was identified, that GIS is an important tool for H&H design, and we have not had programs that are specifically oriented towards water resources designers and H&H people. We're also trying to get really creative about closing the gap, because I think we've all had that experience of you sit in a formal class for a couple days, and then you get to your office and you have an assignment, and you still don't know, what do I do, how do I start this? And so really, we're taking that opportunity to actually get the support. So one example would be, we have a grade separation project in the Odessa district, and they requested our support, and we said, hey, we can help you, and why don't we, instead of just training the couple people that are working on that project, let's train everyone in the Odessa district that wants training on this. And while we're at it, why should we just train the Odessa district? Let's train El Paso as well. And we're also training the H&H section, because not only do we need to have the same skills for design, but we need to be good at training, and so we can learn from that experience as well. So really trying to get away from just helping one person at a time to helping as many people at a time as possible through creative strategies. So really, I encourage you to let us know what your biggest needs are so that we can find some innovative ways to address them. I'm also really interested in, we have a requirement for districts to have a district hydraulics engineer, and so making sure that people that are in that role feel really confident in how to perform those functions, and that relates to this community of practice idea. So again, this theme of supporting and empowering staff so they can fulfill their responsibilities. DHEs are the district hydraulics engineers. They're the primary point of H&H expertise in every district, and most of them actually have to wear multiple hats. And so we really want to make sure that there's a way that we are supporting them and training them on the most important topics and priorities, that we're creating a way that there's a relationship so that we can identify needs, and so they can ultimately find each other and be a resource as well. The hydraulic design manual. So it's been a long time since we really took a wholesale look at this document. We've been really intentional, I would say, about thinking about what additional content is needed. But over the years, it's grown to be like a 600-page document. And so it's time really to take that fresh look. And I think that includes, some of you guys have heard me mention design thinking. I just love this idea. I think once you learn about it, you're like, why don't we think about everything this way? It's really, designing with the user in mind. And so when you think about who are the users of the H&H manual, what do they really need? How do people learn? How do we deliver effective content? We're ready to take a wholesale fresh look at that. We want to start, the question, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So we want to identify and implement some near-term revisions. Those are things that we know need to be updated or that are just really simple to update. And then look at more medium-term revisions, things that don't require structural changes in the manual and will be relatively simple to implement. And then ultimately take a really big, fresh look at the document. And that'll include, trying to understand what things would be better as standalone guidance, things that need to be updated more frequently, or things that are more detailed, maybe don't need to be in the manual itself. And then thinking about different ways that people learn. So maybe a series of training videos would be more suitable, or checklists. So hydraulic design manual as one priority, the research program as another one. So our research program is essential. And it's really a big part of what has kept TxDOT at the forefront of any DOT in the country, a leader within the nation. And so we've always had a very vigorous program, but I think it's really time to reimagine and re-energize that program. So we want to keep adding thinking partners. That has included, there's a functional area committee, which is, our functional area is structures and hydraulics. And so we've added more people that are hydraulics experts to the FAC, including from the Dallas and the Houston districts. And if other districts are interested in participating, please do let us know. And then we're hoping to actually kind of reestablish the collaboration that had existed previously, where we really get together periodically with those thinking partners to try to identify the problem needs and statements. And then also really looking at how does our program fit into the national program, because we really don't want to be redundant to stuff that's happening nationally. And there's stuff that might be important to us that is better suited to happen on the national level. So lots of different ways that we're looking at the research program. And I do want to just mention 3 current projects. One is on generalized skew. So that's for stream stats and adjusting based on your physiographic location. The peak rate factor, which is the ability to adjust the hydrograph to account for hydrophysiographic region in Texas. And then our biggest project is nicknamed Streamflow 2. I wish I had more time to tell you all about what a great project this is, but you will be hearing about it more as we go along. It is being led by David Maidment at the University of Texas at Austin, and we have a lot of project partners, including the USGS and KISTers and other external partners, as well as, I'll talk about next in our collaboration, a really important opportunity to make that project even better through some partnerships with other local entities in Texas, state level and national level. So collaboration is so important, and this goal here is a little bit wordy, but I think it's really important. We want to ensure that all areas of TxDOT are well supported as it relates to H&H, and that TxDOT and Texans, and really everyone possible, benefits by optimizing resources. So we know we're going to make investments because we need them for Texas. We need them for TxDOT. But we don't want to miss any opportunities to create more benefits or to benefit more in the work that we're doing by not connecting with what's going on in the broader community. So that's really, those of you who know me know that I'm all about collaboration and cooperation, and I like to say we all do better when we all do better. So we have a lot of internal collaborations that are happening, most notably with the Bridge Division. Bridge has always been a really strong partner with hydraulics. We're partnered in the research program. We're partnered on Scour, which you'll hear about as the next topic, but a lot of other divisions as well. We have strong relationships with environmental affairs. I'll talk in a minute about some collaboration with TPP as well, including on the GIS program, which hopefully, I'm sorry you guys are actually missing the presentation right now on that exciting work, but there's a big effort with GIS statewide. And then these hybrids, so that Streamflow 2 project is an example where we have, the National Weather Service and NOAA. They're working on a national water model that is going to be doing some similar things, looking at how to forecast flood inundation. We're partnering with the USGS because they're the kind of premier entity looking at the standards of practice for gauging streams. And we're partnering with Water Development Board because they're the agency in Texas that is really responsible for flood management, and they are deploying a lot of gauges in the world. But we have a lot of local partners who are actually creating their own flood early warning systems or have a well-evolved flood early warning system. And so we want to be learning from them as well. We're finding other DOTs that have also done this work. So really just not wanting to miss any opportunities by not finding the other people that we should be partnering with, learning from, and sharing knowledge with. Because the ultimate truth is that while a local government might make a huge investment in a flood early warning system, other people shouldn't be recreating the wheel themselves. That like there's something that we can do at the state level by trying to learn from them and like standardize or create a program that's accessible to other local governments that really amplifies the power of the work. So moving on to my first emerging issue, resilience. And this is probably no surprise to anyone that resilience is something that we're talking about a lot more. I mean, we all think about it in the context of flooding. I think if you're in the H&H area, we know that there is extreme weather beyond flooding. So we just experienced Winter Storm Uri in February, and that was a huge wake-up call in terms of what resilience might mean or need to mean. We've had wildfires. We have a pandemic. We have experienced supply chain issues. We are seeing it with workforce. We experienced a ransomware attack. So there's so many reasons that this topic is important. And that's why I love this FHWA timeline that's listed, kind of the third image from the left, really kind of on the federal level, like what were some of the precipitating events for the national focus. So in terms of hydraulics, like we already have Chapter 15 of the Hydraulic Design Manual on Coastal Engineering, and that's probably the greatest degree to which we explicitly talk about it. I think it's really implicit in all of our approaches because they are very risk-based, but we want to create more tools for people to understand how to look at those types of design connection to resilience. And then I do also want to mention something that TPP is working on, the Transportation Planning and Programming Division. They're taking the lead on the statewide resilience program. And so Casey Wells is the leader for that. And I encourage you to keep an eye out, reach out to him if you have any questions. I did tell him I would note that right now we are beginning to scope the work for the statewide plan, planning to do an NTP in early 2022 and deliver the plan in 2023 or 2024 with iterative deliverables along the way. And right now we're actually identifying other partners and divisions who should be at the table and helping develop this work. So if you are in that demographic, please reach out to either me or Casey so we can get you involved, either very deeply partnered or just make sure that you're coming along with that program, because that statewide plan will affect all of us. All right, my second emerging issue is fluvial geomorphology, which is a very long word. So what is that? Basically, your rivers are shaped by hydrology, geology, and physics. So it's kind of complicated, and it's not helped by the fact that it's called fluvial geomorphology. We don't have another simple way of calling it out right now, so if anyone has suggestions, please let me know. But the truth is that rivers are dynamic systems. And so this is essentially a big energy problem, and it's kind of complicated because there are a lot of variables that are challenging to fully quantify. But what we're talking about is the shape of river based on the action of flowing water. So key point, and Mark Wenzel is going to be speaking about this afternoon, and he is much more knowledgeable than I, so I will not try to be redundant to what he's going to describe to us. But I do think that it's like just a key idea for people. Channels carry water, and they also carry sediment. So we need to really pay attention to that. And so what I'm showing here, there's a diagram on the left, which is Lane's relationship, and it's describing this balance between sediment supply, sediment size, slope of the channel, and water, so the hydrology, the patterns of stream flow. And when that's out of balance, you either have aggradation or degradation. And so one example of the way that that balance gets interrupted is when we have a dam. So that top middle picture is just showing that dams typically end up impounding a lot of sediment, and they discharge the water, but that water is hungry because it doesn't have all the sediment that it has the energy to carry. And so the pictures on the right and the bottom middle are of the Sumner Dam, which is in New Mexico. And so the top right, you can see this hydraulic or hydroelectric intake that was constructed in the 30s. And you can see that it was pretty tall. There's some little humans standing on the top of it. And by 2014, I believe, is the lower right picture, that's what that hydraulic intake looks like now. So that's a lot of deposition in that reservoir. And that's generally what's happening in all of our reservoirs. And so then what happens is on the downstream end, the middle bottom photo is a human who is showing how much that stream has downcut because it doesn't have as much sediment as it has the energy to carry. And so just wanting to start thinking about things in that context. That is also what is happening in our river systems. Another thing that really changes that relationship of water and sediment in rivers is changes in land use. And so these can be urbanization. And so even like a 10% change in land use can actually trigger a response in a river, in a stream. It can be changing from forest to agriculture. It can be all sorts of like ways that we change that relationship of how much rainfall becomes runoff, how often, for how long, and whether there is as much sediment washing through the watershed and into the stream. So the picture on the right depicts a classic image of an urban stream, and some of you guys may have seen similar images or stream systems in your communities. This is happening because there is a disturbance in that relationship, the equilibrium relationship between the sediment supply and the hydrology. Channelization also has a huge impact on basically just the energy in a stream. So when we look at the figure on the left, we can see, if we straighten a channel from point A to point B that used to meander, if we make it half as long as it was in the original condition, because the endpoints are at the same elevation, we have twice the slope. So that's a lot more energy that stream has. And when it has too much energy and not enough sediment, it finds the place that it can get the sediment from. And if you have the geology, it'll start taking it from the bed and from the banks. And so what we see on the right is actually the Walla Walla River in Walla Walla, Washington. That's just fun to say, where they straighten the river and it will not have it because it has too much energy. And so it is meandering in spite of that channelization project. Head cuts are another kind of disturbance type that I want people to start thinking about how do you identify that. Head cuts tend to migrate from downstream to upstream. And so we often have a situation where it'll hit a hard point as it's migrating upstream and it'll keep trying to balance itself out. So one thing that streams are doing in order to manage the energy is changing their slope so that they're not as steep if they have too much stream power. And so a hard point, like a culvert, can actually really help to hold that grade and create this jump. And so sometimes we need to actually just create an energy dissipation structure so that we can maintain that drop in a very controlled way. It's also really important that we think about, the stream's gonna keep trying to do its thing because it's hungry. And so at some point, even a culvert structure will get short-circuited. The river will cut around it. And so just understanding that process and pattern of behavior is really useful. So getting to a couple of examples. This is an example that Mark Wenzel from the Water Development Board shared with me. It's Lock and Dam on the Trinity River, Lock and Dam number 4. And these structures, there are 4 of them that were built about 100 years ago. And so this is just southeast of Dallas. And just some images easy to access from Google Earth. 2005, you can see that there's this erosion happening on the south side, the right bank. And you can see 4 years later, it's more, and it's more on both sides of the bank downstream of this structure. But the structure is essentially acting as a grade control at this point. And then it keeps evolving. So this erosion gets bigger and bigger, and ultimately in 2017, it was game over. So this lock and dam structure was finally kind of short-circuited. And now that head cut's gonna keep migrating further upstream. It affects our transportation projects, it affects our utilities, it affects adjacent property. So it's not a trivial issue. And just to kind of summarize the kind of what is this issue, there are typically 3 ways that we're thinking about the hydraulic geometry of a stream. So we often hear this idea of meander migration, which is a lot easier to say than fluvial geomorphology. I get that. But that's a plan form descriptor of a river. So you can see in the top right, like different ways that we think about the plan view of the river and the geometry. And when I was introducing this topic, I didn't read this out, but we talked about streams are dynamic systems. And so they will change over time. And stable streams are in a stable equilibrium where there will continue to be lots of changes, but the general parameters stay similar over time, over an engineering timescale. Whereas when that balance is upset, then we start seeing more rapid disruptions. So another way we describe the geometry is the cross-section. And so on the right, we see the typical channel evolution model where when there is not enough sediment or too much energy in the stream, it'll cut down. And then at some point, those banks are not stable. And so it'll widen because those banks are falling in. And then it eventually reaches a stable equilibrium, eventually, theoretically, when that right balance of slope and sediment supply and hydrology exist. And then it kind of fills back in and forms what is a more normal balance of the shape of a channel. The third dimension that we need to be aware of is the longitudinal section. I mentioned head cuts. And so that's another way that we think about like what does stability look like, or how do we create a new equilibrium that protects our infrastructure. So I just want to kind of think about like the forest and the trees here. And Ab and Trent are going to talk next about scour, which is really this HEC 18 box in the middle. But what I'm talking about is the HEC 20 box all the way to the left. And so that is an important dimension of what is happening in a stream system. So the tree part is we typically look in our right-of-way at the bridge, but the forest is like looking at the entire reach and what's happening. And I want to just give a couple of quick examples. This is SH 63 going into Louisiana. Route 8 at the Sabine River. The bridge was constructed in 1937. This is just downstream of the Toledo Bend Reservoir. That's about 10.5 miles upstream, river miles. That was built in 1966. And there is actually a gauge that's been located at this location. So it's very convenient for us to kind of see what patterns have changed over time. We did a simple kind of desktop analysis and looked at like where is the stream most stable and least stable. And that resulted in realigning the roadway. We've got another example, FM 3278 at the Trinity River, bridge constructed in 1997. It is half a mile downstream of the Lake Livingston Dam, which was constructed in 1968. And so we can see that based on the conversation earlier, like this stream is probably sediment starved, and we need to look at like what is happening more to reach scale rather than thinking, oh, we can just armor within our right of way, and that's like an effective way to use our resources. Our friends at the Water Development Board actually sent this figure and a paper as well, so we're able to see just how the gauge rating curve has changed over time. So the takeaway here is that for the same stage, that flow rate is like much greater now, and it's because the channel has changed its shape and its conveyance capacity. And then another simple desktop thing to do is really just look at historic imagery to see how much a bank has moved. So in this case, the right bank has moved about 410 feet in the time between 1968 and today. So what are we going to do about this? And I'm really thinking about like what, so what, now what? So what is fluid geomorphology? So what? Here are some examples of why we should care about it. What are we going to do now? We're trying to cultivate our own understanding of this topic. It is complicated. It's not something that is in the normal practice that we're already incorporated with. We're collaborating with experienced partners. So we're really grateful to have the Army Corps of Engineers partnering with us, the Water Development Board, and others. We're engaging consultants with the appropriate discipline expertise to support us and help us hopefully develop systematic programmatic approaches, and we are looking for training opportunities. And then, yeah, that concludes my presentation. Sorry, I kind of sped through that last bit of it. Jason, do we have any time for any questions?
We got a couple of minutes for